So thanks for joining us today. I'm Sam Bogoch, CEO of Axle AI, and on the call by Patrice Gouttebel, our VP of Product Management, and Katie Scott, our VP of Operations. Feel free to ask questions at any time, and this will be recorded, and we'll be posting it on the website on the Republic crowdfunding page when we're done. We expect the call will take less than a half hour, but happy to run long if there are questions. So we thought for this week's call, we would focus on one of our products called Connector. And I'll be describing what it is and why it's an important part of our strategy going forward. We also are happy to answer general questions about recent developments in the market. And also, we just got notice that we are getting a decent sized order from the Social Security Administration. So that's a positive development. At any rate, let's talk a bit about Connector. Connector is a product that, unlike our other products, we actually acquired about 18 months ago. It was developed by one of our partners and represented a huge amount of engineering work, actually, which you'll see when you see the technology. But they had not really figured out how to market it. We thought that we knew where it could be marketed and sold, and were able to strike what we thought was a very good deal for everyone, which resulted in our being the owner of the source code and the publisher of the software. So Connector has in fact worked out to be really important for us, especially at some of our bigger accounts. I'll be talking in a little more detail about the kinds of deals where it's been super helpful. And we don't think it's going to be a huge part of our business this year, probably less than 10%. But we do feel like it's an enabler for some of these larger and more complex deals. So what Connector does is essentially a Swiss Army knife. It's an integration tool that allows us and our customers and partners to build out very sophisticated automated workflows. And it's something that our flagship product, Axle AI, has been missing from day one. That was partly intentional because we didn't want to get caught into a trap that almost every media management and video search vendor gets caught in, which is that they become custom services companies. So they go to market with the starting product, and then somebody says, oh, I love that, but I wish it did A, B, and C. And from that time forward, most of their time is caught up doing professional services to customize for one vendor and then another and then another. And the product itself does not get a chance to really hit critical mass or scale. So we wanted to avoid that trap, and we said, we're not going to do custom stuff. We're just going to focus on the core product and building it out with each release, which we, I think, successfully done. But along the way, people did, in fact, ask for those extra odds and ends, and we never had a good answer apart from pointing them to third parties. And then if you looked at these third-party products, they're quite expensive and complex to deploy. So we're like, okay, we really need to have something for ourselves. And the timing, as they say, worked out very well with us licensing Connector and becoming a publisher a year and a half ago. So it gives us this whole extra capability. And we've had very large deals with companies like Mediaset in Italy, which is the largest private broadcaster in Italy, or Telefonica, which is the largest telecommunications company in Spain. Both of those deals were really driven by our ability to offer both Connector and Axle AI. And we've also done contracts for a variety of profile sports content owners. We did a large digitization project through a partner for the NBA. And we also have done, Patrice can talk about this detail, or maybe not too much detail actually, a workflow that we've done for a company called NextVR that it was just announced was acquired by Apple for $100 million late last week. So, it's turned out that Connector is really critical for these larger deals and puts us in a really good light compared to the more complex and harder to deploy option. But it's not for all our customers. It's much more targeted when somebody needs a little extra and is willing to pay for it. And over time, we expect to bring the price points down and make it even more widely available. But it does seem like there's a sweet spot right now in these larger accounts. So Patrice, with that, maybe I'll hand it over to you, and if you could give folks a taste for what Connector looks like and how it works.
Definitely. Thank you, Sam, and welcome, folks. Very excited to actually show you Connector. So one thing to note, first of all, Connector is a standalone app that is not directly linked to Axel. Now you can link it to Axel software, our flagship product, and you can perform tasks with the two together. But in reality, Connector will actually can run also by itself without Axel server. And what that means is that because we are trying to still market the product and have a huge growth, this is one product that will not have that much cost for us as a company in order to implement a SaaS model, which we are going to announce very soon with the release of Connector 2020. But enough about the strategy, and let's take a quick look at the interface. So as you can see, it's basically a diagram where I script and draw lines in between different tasks. And this is what we call a rule-based automation workflow. So depending on some rules, 1, 2, or 3, I will perform a task. And notice that we always have success in green or failure. So I can perform other tasks upon failure. And this is just something very simple, print string, but what would be the use case for our customers or different users? There's a lot that can be done with Connector. And one of them would be, for example, to transcode. So you can actually use Connector to ingest. This is how we have implemented it with the company that has been digitizing many years of the NBA seasons, going from tape to digital version. That is digitizing. So basically, here we have every second we perform a task, connect to our Axel server, perform a search based on a metadata in Axel, and depending on the result, we are simply going to transcode the new clip. That is the idea. Let me quickly jump to Connector and show you what it is about. Excuse me, let's go back to a page where we have content. And here we go. So Axel is our flagship product. It's a software that will monitor and create previews for companies with a lot of media assets. And these previews can be tagged. And the goal is, the goal would be to get the videos and transcode them. And I believe I will not be able to show you this part. So let's go back to another workflow, which will also showcase the new features in Connector 2020. And with the COVID-19 and the requirement for many companies to work from home, that means that a lot of video editors will not have the possibility to access their media because they cannot go to their office. So what they need to do, they still need to basically edit from the footage that is received by the company. And there is a way where you can actually edit from a lower resolution of the file. And from there, you can then export from the original media file. And so what we are going to do in this case, and you can see one example where you can use, this is a new feature in Connector 2020, where you have the UI where you can choose different settings. And we are just going to have a watch folder. And from there, we are simply going to get the information from the settings and go ahead and transcode. So you have this complex task, and the goal would be to take the file that the person is editing with in order to create new media. So going to the desktop, we have a folder called Watch Folder. The folder called Watch Folder, it is empty, and we have a new folder also in the desktop called Output. Let me empty it so it is clear, and let me run the project. And you will notice that we have some parts going around that are meant to show you where we are in a project. And I'm just going to pick up some very short videos. These are very short clips, but the idea will be that everything that appears in the watch folder is going to be processed, and you will notice at the bottom here, we are rendering now new footage in the output folder. And what we are doing is we are replicating the folder structure so that as a video editor, when I will go in and find the file, I will be able to know exactly where the high res is. So it's easier for me to know. So if I post, for example, on Dropbox or something like that, that will be available to my editor on the cloud, I can see what is the path of the original media, and I can still edit from it. And with that, I believe we have a question that popped up. Oh, that is actually Sam encouraging people to ask questions. We do have the Q&A button that you can see at the bottom, or you can use the chat feature. And now that we have finished a quick demo of Connector, let me just briefly show you what else we can do with Connector. I talked about getting creating media. The other options that you have, and on the right side, it's actually pretty neat. You have a list of all the different functions that Connector provide. You can, for example, connect to a database, Cassandra database or other. So you can upload to an FTP server. You can upload to Vimeo. You can upload to YouTube. So whatever I transcode, I can then send it to YouTube. Upon failure, I can send an email. Or if you're running Connector on a Mac, you can also use iCloud to send a text message to somebody. So big failure, like my video is not created, let me actually send a text message to the person. So it's actually more urgent. Hopefully they will be more on their phone than checking their emails. Other thing you can do, connect directly with other tools. That's kind of where the names come from. Connector is extremely open. You do not need to wait for a vendor to talk to another vendor to communicate together. What you can do is make API calls via XML, via command line, via REST API. So you can make easily, for example, HTTP requests, which basically is the gold standard right now for creating JSON APIs or sending requests. You can, of course, do file copy with file verification, so a checksum that will allow me to confirm that the file is intact from one end to the other. So verified copy, connect to Axel, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, image manipulation, so you can do some flip blurring and other kind of image rotation. Another thing, QR code generator, webcam capture. There is a lot that actually can be done with Connector that will allow to automate the workflow. And the real goal is any repetitive task that you do not need to have a human sit through to add files, confirm, for example, the height of my video, and this, because it has this height, it needs to go there, and I need to verify each copy, and if there is one that has failed, I need to actually reprocess it and whatnot. So all of these tasks can be then automated inside Connector. And let's see if we have any questions, and if not, that will turn it over back to Sam.
Thanks, Patrice. Yeah, no, I think hopefully that gives a flavor. It's obviously pretty geeky stuff. Like the people that are using this most intensively are the kind of workflow engineers and broadcast engineering types who understand the details of the file types that they need to generate. Oftentimes, there's some file transformation. Then there's like a copy using standard network protocols. Then there might be, as Patrice showed, a kind of checksum where you make sure that the delivered file is the same as the source file. And then there's a variety of detailed tasks, like, for instance, cropping the video so that it fits within different mobile phone display formats, or fits for a large screen 4K TV, but then can also work on a laptop monitor. Um, in the video industry, typically each of these formats has to be generated very painstakingly with exact specifications from the transmission vendor or from the player that's being used. And so where we've seen the biggest win for Connector is that as people set these workflows up, they don't have to have a huge amount of repetitive labor. It can just be done as a push button operation. The other thing is that there have been tools for this kind of thing in our industry, but much like the media management systems, they've been very expensive, typically in the mid to high tens of thousands of dollars. There are companies like Telestream and Aspera, which is now a division of IBM, that do this kind of thing. But their tools are very specialized, and compared to what you just saw, require even more of a kind of high priesthood of people that know how to use them. This is accessible enough that most people that know a little JavaScript and can drag and drop on screen can actually throw something together, particularly with our help, and we charge for the professional services on that.
We do have a
So
question, Sam,
thanks, yeah.
which would be, what do you think will make Axle AI more attractive to investors?
Good question. I think we're doing some of those things. There are a number. One is to kind of explain the impact of the technology in layman's terms. So obviously we have something like deep tech like Connector. We have the user interface of Axle AI. Those are things that we need to get the word out about. And we've had some luck with that using the Republic platform. The promotional video that we put out about a month ago is also helping. And generally, we rely on things like trade shows and press announcements and partnerships to get that word out. But the number one thing I think that we can do is keep getting the word out, because the potential market is very large, and the size of our company today is quite small, right? We did just under $1 million of revenue last year, and we think there's the opportunity here for much larger revenues in the future. In fact, one of our investors, Jason Kalkanis, thinks that we can be a unicorn in the not too distant future. Whether that's accurate or not, or whether we really have the potential to be a few $100 million versus $1 billion, the point is there's a huge market in processing and analyzing video, as it's becoming something that everyone from churches to universities, corporates, governments, political campaigns, they're all doing this all day long, and they weren't doing this 5 years ago. So the tool set that they have is very primitive, and what we're bringing is a way to modernize and automate it. And particularly in the last month or two, the other thing is giving people a way to access it remotely, because our software is largely based on the browser, and all these formats that Patrice was showing, those formats allow people to work from home. If they have to work with the original media, which are these enormous 4K and 8K files, it is not practical for multiple people to collaborate from home using those files. But with our software, they can log in with their browser, they can see a low-res version of that same media, and they can get a lot of work done without having to constantly copy these huge files around. So
Exactly.
the COVID-19 limitations, if you will, have actually given us some real opportunities going forward.
Yeah. So I managed to solve my server, but to Sam's point, these files can be extremely heavy. But what we are working off right now in Axle from the web browser is the lowest proxy. And that means that I can access, for example, a server in London. Here we go. In London, I can access a server in London. I can log in and view the media, grab the media that I need, and potentially edit from home without having to work on the extremely high resolution media. And as I log in, I will actually show you also the smaller, the dark color of the Axel AI interface. But now I can simply review the footage, whatever I need, and find it. So Axel will use existing tag, will use AI as well to tell you who appears in the video, what is in the video, what is being said, and I can search, find, and grab whatever I need to edit from. That being said, there are other things that we are trying to implement to make Axel more attractive to investors. The investor, they are coming in, they just want to actually have a return in their investment. That's the whole point. And seeing a big complicated software may not be right off the bat visible to investor. What will be the return on my investment? So we are developing our own AI platforms that we can then use to charge as a SaaS model. We have already done it with the speech to text, which is extremely popular. And we are trying to broaden the scope as to who is adopting this kind of technology. And next week, I don't know if you want to come around. If you'll be free to come and see, check out the next week features of our webinar for the investors. We are going to talk about Ascribe, which is a freemium, something that people can just download, sign up to a SaaS, and they get speech to text available. And from there on, we are going to expand and provide them AI. A lot of companies are doing AI, but they provide you an engine. And this engine, you will still need to develop in order to integrate with. What we want to do at Axel is provide a platform. You get the technology and the platform to find what you need and perform the AI capabilities. So that's it. Sam, back over to you. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen as well.
Thanks, Patrice. Let's see. If there are additional questions, we are happy to discuss them. I will say we're excited that we're about halfway to our fundraising goal on Republic. So we hope to see continued progress with that. And anybody that's interested in investing, feel free to join these weekly calls. We've been holding them every Monday, and I think we've got plans to hold them each of the next few weeks. The other thing I will say is that we're working on a strategic partnering announcement, which should be pretty exciting for early May. And I can't disclose any details, but it's with a very large, well-known company. And that will be hopefully something that will increase our visibility in the broader media sharing world. Next question, when exactly is that next webinar? Good question. It is Monday, if I'm not mistaken, the 20th, Monday the 20th at 3 p.m. And we'll be posting the invitation link on the Republic /Axel-AI webpage. So folks are welcome to join and ask more questions then. And as Patrice mentioned, we're going to be demonstrating the new Ascribe product. Ascribe is our third product. We rolled it out as a plugin for Adobe Premiere back in November of 2019. So it's been out for about 5 months. It has already generated over 1,000 new leads and contacts and a smaller number of actual paying subscribers, but it's still quite promising. What we're going to be announcing next week and the week after is versions of Ascribe that don't even require Adobe Premiere, that are essentially freestanding Mac and PC Windows applications that give you the same capability as our Premiere panel. So that should be pretty exciting for us. And again, the goal here is to broaden that base of both interested parties and prospects for buying our more sophisticated products. And we feel like with the Ascribe family, we're doing that. So, look forward to talking about that and answering more questions about the offering next week. We've got a few minutes left if there are additional questions. Otherwise, we'll probably call it a day and look forward to talking next week. Thanks very much.
Thank you.